Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com. Photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Netflix's new movie, Extraction, starring Chris Hemsworth. We are bringing the directorial debut of Sam Hargrave. He is a skilled stuntman and now director. He's known for collaborations with the Russo brothers, the Russo brothers being the producers and directors of many Marvel installments, such as Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. So if you were familiar with any of those properties, these guys were responsible for directing and coordinating directing those movies. They are the producers of this movie, and they allow Sam Hargrave to take on the reins as the director for this movie. This is his first movie, and Sam Hargrave knocks it out of the park. He's best well known for movies that he's worked with the Russo brothers on Civil War and Endgame. And so he's also been in Atomic Blonde as well. But Sam Hargrave blew me out of the water when it came to this movie being his first directorial debut. Kind of going into this movie, just a little bit of plot synopsis and whatnot. Extraction is a 2020 American action thriller movie directed by Sam Hargrave, and his feature debut and screenplay by Joe Russo, based on the graphic novel Ciudad by Andre Parks, Joe Russo, Anthony Russo, Fernando Leo, Leon Gonzalez, and Eric Skillman. The film stars Chris Hemsworth, Rugarishash Jawal, Randeep Huda, Golshifteh Farhani, Pankaj Tripathi, Piranshu Penali, and David Harbour. I know I fucked all those names up, so I'm just gonna say apologies to all of those fine actors and actresses. I apologize for that brutal mispronunciation of all of the individuals, but bear with me, because if there's anything like that, I will just preface with that I've got the sluggish American accent, so I just want to say that up front. The plot follows a black ops mercenary who must rescue an Indian drug lord's kidnapped son in Dhaka, Bangladesh. It was released on Netflix on a $65 million budget, and I'll just tell you right up the front, it's a B action movie with A-list action. Now, if that's all you need to know, then jump in, because what qualifies it as a B-list action movie, in my opinion, is it's immensely enjoyable when it comes down to the action. The story is not exactly that important, and the writing is not some of the best writing and most interesting writing I've ever heard, but the action suffices it. It's shot by clearly someone that knows good choreography and stunt coordination, and it's led by relatively charismatic Chris Hemsworth alongside Randeep Huda, who plays Saju. He's kind of the counterpart to the Chris Hemsworth character. So yeah, I do think that the majority of this movie, the choreography, the cinematography, the action, it all looks pretty good in my opinion. It never looks cheap. Maybe some CGI here and there stitching that needs to be fixed, but nothing crazy. I thought it was relatively unpredictable, and the majority of the movie is shot in what appears, I believe, India, although it's probably not 100% there, but it does seem to have some some Bollywood influences from the cast standpoint. But yeah, I did think it was relatively diverse, with the exception of the quote unquote white savior look at it. The white guy saving the brown guy and then shooting a bunch of other brown people or people of color. just to get his job done. I can see where that's a little problematic. I didn't see that it was not too focused on that, and I don't think it glorified that in a way that they could have, and they have in other movies. Other movies that we look at it, not exactly the same, racial flow, but movies like we've seen the big extraction movies before, a lot of 80s, a lot of 90s influences and stuff like that. What did they say? Escape from New York is a big one, although I have not seen that one, so I can't do a big comparison to it. I will say the cons in this movie were the pacing and the writing in some areas. Anytime there wasn't any action going on, I felt myself drifting off or wanting to pull my phone out of my pocket. So I will say up front, if you're interested in this movie, it's a good B action movie to just have on in the background if you don't want to be too invested. Some people might call it, Call of Duty the movie, and for every positive thing it does have about it, it definitely feels like you're playing the most realistic version of Call of Duty, if that is possible. When it comes down to the technicals of throwing flashbangs and grenades, and the way that the camera follows certain characters in this in certain action scenes are very impressive. There's actually, the action in this is shot in a way that it feels very dynamic. It's gory. It's kind of reminds me of the Upgrade Lee Whannell kind of feel. So if you saw Upgrade or anything like that, you could kind of see how the camera moves with the punches in a way, or you get to see the impact of people getting hit in the face. Chris Hemsworth plays a character. His name is Tyler Rake, and basically he kills somebody with a rake, and that's basically all you need to know about the movie. I heard that from Dave Chin, so I was just like, that is hilarious. So Tyler Rake happens to kill people with a rake. So if that's your kind of movie, then go ahead and jump on in. The water's fine. Don't expect the smartest, most intricate movie. Expect a maybe slightly bloated B-action movie with a modest budget and a really good action. I think this is some of the best action of the year, considering we haven't seen too much. I will say it was probably slightly more impressive than the Harley Quinn movie, which did have that John Wick feel. A lot of people are going to connect some of the hardcore, hard, intense action from John Wick to this. I will say in some areas it did feel like that when it came down to the hand-to-hand combat, but ultimately I think they're shot differently enough that this feels much more military based, if that makes more sense, and John Wick is much more quote unquote kung fu based. I don't have a better word for that, but you know what I mean. It's not quite as military styled combat based fighting in the movies. So yes, let's jump into the spoilers. Overall, I would say I'd give this about a 7 out of 10. It's a great B action movie for It's a great B action movie for Netflix. I think it's one of the better action movies, and it's one I actually would recommend to the majority of people who are interested in kind of a relatively gory, bloody action movie that doesn't make you think too much. I will say that I modestly confused here and there with if I look down at my phone, I was like, oh, I don't know what's really going on, but there's some cool action going on. So I would say maybe it tries to be a little bit smarter than it is, but other than that, I don't think it's a waste of time, is what I would say. I there's a lot of stuff on Netflix, and then it's easy to waste your time on there. I do not think this is a waste of time. So let's get into the spoilers for Extraction. Rudarush Jawal is the actor who is being extracted, who's playing Avi Mahajan. And I thought, my brother basically said it just as well. My brother Michael and I were watching this, and we were like, he has the same expression in every scene. And so it's not like he's a bad actor, and I didn't feel bad for him or anything like that. Like I felt I had sympathy for him a little bit, but he did have the same look on his face throughout 90% of the movie, and there was just I thought there was going to be majority of these movies have that subplot of the big brooding guy, helping the young quote unquote innocent one, and them kind of meeting on some sort of level ground and maybe becoming friends at the end. I felt like they were trying to pull that a little bit at a way, kind of that trope, but I didn't really feel the connection between the two characters, although um, it there is this level of, you know, uh, Chris Hemsworth physically actually does say, do you trust me? And Avi's like, no, I don't. And he's like, good. And he throws him off of a rooftop onto another one. Hemsworth does. And so that was the kind of humor I wanted a little bit more within the movie, and a little bit more uh, of a dynamic setup between the two, because I felt like they were trying to have like a Chris Hemsworth. He lost his family, lost his wife, lost his son to lymphoma. I don't exactly remember how his wife died, but his wife passed as well, and I felt like there was supposed to be some sort of connection between, Avi being kind of uh, Chris Hemsworth being the paternal father figure to Avi, and I felt like either Chris Hemsworth is too young in this, but he's like the perfect age. It might be Avi. My guess is that they wanted an adult to play a child, and so they didn't want to have to deal with all the child laws of having an actor, a child actor, because you can only shoot so many hours. So what they probably did was got a really young looking young man to play, Avi. Avi feels like he probably should have been like 10 years old. I think like Man on Fire, that movie with Denzel and I think Dakota Fanning, maybe she's pretty young in that. Um, that's sort of what I've been hearing in comparison. So the more I think about it and kind of regurgitate what happened in the movie, I do feel like maybe Avi would have been better suited as a younger person, because he did feel kind of like things were just happening to him, and he had the same look on his face for like what felt like the majority of the movie. Other than that, I do think the other supporting characters are pretty strong in this, and they kind of build a nice little quote unquote extraction world. We have Golfeshte Farani. Like I said, I'm sorry, I'm messing all these up. I'm sure I'm gonna get, uh, you know, what is it, burned at the stake in the in the comments. But y'all, just take it easy on me. Just I'm trying to pronounce these as well as I can. So she plays Nick Khan, and I think I'm in love. I'm just kidding. She is a phenomenal actress that I've never seen in anything, and so what my guess is, these are actresses and actors that have come from Bollywood or other major studios from around the world. She seems to have been in Body of Lies, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tales, about Ellie in Patterson. Okay, so I didn't see Patterson, but I did hear about it, and so I heard she was really good in that. And I loved her in this. I thought she was a badass, and she has just enough to do that makes her relevant. And they didn't have to do the whole girl power thing with it at all. Like, she just happens to be, another agent that is pretty badass as well. So I like the cast that they build up with this extraction world. Randeep Huda, I also said, is Saju. I think his character is badass. I did not see that. Like I said, the unpredictability about this movie is why I really liked it. The fact that Saju was, they go psh, 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 stab, 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 shoot, 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 boom, boom, rocket, psh, 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 and then he like kill some of his own team, boom, 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 and then all of a sudden he got shot in the neck. It's like, and I was like, sheet, man. Like, I was like, sheet. Like, I could not even get it out, like, how I felt, like, how unpredictable it was. Maybe other people have seen, these types of movies, with the extraction of a kid, or, this versus that. But I had heard podcasts talk about, I would like to see a a series featuring him. And I was thinking the same thing while I was watching. I was like, oh, I can't wait to see him in another movie. And him getting shot in the neck, I was like, damn. I was like, this is intense. And so I was just, that's why I really, there was a couple things that really pushed this movie over to the recommend side, and that, the cinematography, choreography, action, and the unpredictability aspect of this is why I really liked it. Also, David Harbour's in this. I'll talk about that in a second. So, yes, action piece takes a little bit of time to get in. I kind of wish it was there's like a flash forward at the beginning, and it's a little bit confusing about what's going on, who's which where. It shows them on the bridge basically at the hour 45-minute mark, then it flashes back to what's going on. The action piece takes a little too long to start at the beginning, in my opinion, but once it does, I realize this is in the hands of somebody that knows what they're doing. It's becomes immediately more sympathetic to the villains of what's going on. Like, there's this whole drug lord villain subplot that is trying to get this kid as well, but this guy is has hired like a gang of kids to go take out like Chris Hemsworth and stuff. And so the very first instance we get of that is this young boy, and he's extremely skinny, trying to lift up this gun after Chris Hemsworth did this major action set piece, just whooped everybody's ass, and all of a sudden he turns around and sees this young boy who looks as he hasn't eaten in like a week and a half, maybe even longer, and the boy is trying to shoot Chris Hemsworth, but is unable to load the gun, is unable to work or operate the gun, and so Chris Hemsworth is just kind of like, walking up to him slow and kind of noble like, and it is it's sad to see this, because I mean this is probably things that are actually happening in other countries and other places, unbeknownst to people like myself, and I'm just really unaware of that that culture, I guess, that subculture, and it definitely made it open my eyes about, oh shit, Chris Hemsworth can't just unload on everybody, because over half the people he's gonna have to unload on are kids. That's just like empty the clips. You just can't do that. You can't root for Chris Hemsworth's character, to kill a bunch of kids. That's crazy. So yeah, and the way we're introduced to the bad guy antagonist, Amir Sheaf, played by Pyrinshu Penuli, I think. This guy he's the quote unquote chill bad guy that is just gonna quietly tell you to, remove a couple fingers for him because you probably deserve it and you need to do some thinking on what you've done wrong. That type of guy. He's the guy that's not going to raise his voice. He's going to let his boys and goons do it for him. And he's got all the cops under his belt, so that just gives Tyler Rake, the Chris Hemsworth character, just gives Tyler the initiative to just whoop everybody's ass. But the way we're introduced to him is with Amir's goon throwing a child off the top, off a rooftop. Like, holy shit. I was like, this movie is ruthless. And of course, it's not like showing too much gore with regards to the children, but I mean, it's brutal. It's like some Dr. Sleep level of like abuse here. Like, I was like, my lord. So that was like where I realized that this movie is unpredictable as heck. I was like, I was not ready for that. There was one mercenary, I think it was a merc. I don't remember his name, like Mark or something. One of the first ones. He looks like Joaquin Phoenix, and Mark Wahlberg had a love child, and it was the Joker SWAT team member, but he gets shot real early in the movie. Y'all know who I'm talking about. He's the only one with the beard, I think. This is when I realized this is going to be like Call of Duty the movie. It basically has numerous long takes. over-the-shoulder perspectives. The camera is essentially in the same style as 1917, where they're getting thrown off the buildings, and it feels like the camera is in the style of is on someone's head. It's not quite that rambunctious and shaky. It's not as much shaky cam as like the Bourne Ultimatum or something like that, or the Bourne series, but it still has that action that is very coherent and clear, and uses wide shots so that you can see what the hell's going on. The one takes are extremely impressive because it just takes that one camera and puts it in like that God camera mode, that Omnicam essentially. It can just float and go through anywhere, go through walls. It hops in the back of a car for a little bit, gets thrown off a roof, gets hit by a few cars. When people were getting hit by cars in this, we are right there with them when they're hit. It is insane. Like, I want to go back and just look at the technicals of how this movie was done. It's very technically savvy and impressive to watch. It takes all the best aspects of like a video game and it services them in an action-oriented plot. I also love the colors of the wardrobe hanging there. I noticed there was just immense color popping off this film. I thought they could have done a good job they could have gone easily with a much more duller tone, but I thought the color palette is in service of something similar to like John Wick. John Wick has those neon colors that are very vibrant, and I think this has very natural color with regards to the wardrobe and attire and set dressing that they decided to use. Lots of blues, a lot of orange, a lot of yellows, a lot of bright colors. So there's the one scene with all the kids showing up, I think, in the back alley I think they're about to take out Tyler and Avi, and they just instantly, Thor goes and gives and hands out ass whoopings to every single one of these kids. Boom, bang, smack, dees, psh, psh, psh. I was like, good Lord, this is crazy. But it also was probably it was probably really cool to act in a scene with Thor, or quote unquote Thor, Chris Hemsworth, and get slung around by just this giant guy. I mean, Chris Hemsworth is a big dude. I'm not sure how big the guy is, but let me see if I can find. I had no idea he had 3 kids. Huh. Yeah, I was very surprised by the ass whoopings he was giving these kids. And that one kid that got slapped around the side of the face, gosh, he got slapped into the next movie, I swear. I was like, or he might have got slapped out of the movie. I don't know what the hell happened to him. I was like, God dang. So right after this, we enter Hip Hop Harbor. He's like, what up? And of course, I was thinking that, David Harbour is kind of an expensive guy to have on here. I don't know how long he's going to last. And based on the way he is acting and how drunk he was getting within the film, it was like, yeah, this character is not long for this world much longer. He plays Gasper, a former teammate of Tyler, living in Dhaka, and so in India. And he's pretty much sold out Tyler and Avi. He's like, they've offered me money and freedom, and I'm going to take it. And so that was when I realized, oh shit, this is some unpredictable shit. But I mean, we've seen, the rat, and we've seen people flip and stuff before, so it's not like the first time this has ever happened. But it happened like on a dime, and I thought it was interesting how he just kept repeating that, what if we just take him out? He'd be better dead. He's better. He's probably in a terrible position anyway. It's like, oh damn, he just doesn't want this kid alive. But David Harbour, huge ass. I mean, he's a big dude. You don't want to mess with a David Harbour size guy. I mean, you get slapped by him, you're not waking up for a long time. But that was an awesome Chris Hemsworth. It was like a Thor versus Hellboy. I know people were geeking out on that. And it looked like David Harbour was going to win if Avi didn't show up. I mean, Avi comes up and he says, son, I ain't playing. And so, yeah, it's pretty... pretty intense when it comes down to that badass fight. I'm glad we got a little, harbor action. It's crazy to think that he's in this world, technically, in this, extraction universe. Although there's not an extraction universe, I kind of feel one coming. The brave speech with Avi telling Tyler Rake how brave he is, and we finding out about the backstory of Chris Hemsworth, his child, his wife, and all of that. Not exactly interesting, in my opinion. I really don't think that is that interesting. Let me see. Okay, so, yeah, I thought the writing throughout the majority of this movie was kind of a snooze, and when people just started kind of giving these, laborious speeches and stuff like that, I was like, this is not that interesting, and they're not really saying anything. We don't really already know too much, and this is where it becomes the more generic side of the B action movie. It doesn't really strive for that extra interesting, bit of writing. Like, they didn't, in my opinion, what they needed is somebody to come back and punch up the script. I think they had a pretty solid script by Joe Russo, but they needed, I think, maybe not a comedic writer, but someone a little bit more relatable that could come down and, kind of connect the dots between, hey, we have a Chris Hemsworth character who has lost his son. Hey, we got a young boy who's lost his father. Let's have them have some sort of bond. There is what feels like no bond, in my opinion, between these people. Even though there's trying to be something at the end that's like, let's see. So yeah, they killed the other Spec Ops guy. I was like, damn. The other Spec Ops guy who I was talking about was Saju. I was very impressed by the multiple action set pieces that he goes through and then gets shot by this random, one of Amir's guys with a sniper gets shot straight in the head, and then Hemsworth gets shot in the neck after his little action scene on the bridge, and it's like, it's not little at all. I did say little. It's pretty dope. We have the side characters, supporting characters. What's her face? Nick Khan rolling up and rocket launching the shit out of a helicopter out of the sky. It's like, this is getting pretty badass. It just became, elevated, bigger, and then boom, one of the main characters down. Boom, the main character's down. And then boom, 8 months later. It's like, what the hell? I was like, is this movie really going to leave us like that? You're going to do me like that? I was like, all of that. So before we kind of cover this last scene of him Avi about to do this diving, his big exit, that stupid pencil was so anticlimactic. I don't really remember why he did that. My brother and I were hoping that he was going to do like a belly flop just in slow motion as the last scene. But anyways, when Chris Hemsworth is like going to his death, and this is the flashback to the beginning of the movie, it's like him looking at his son on the beach or something like that, and his wife and whatnot. I was just like, this whole plot was so unnecessary. It just was there to kind of make us feel bad for the he was kind of, his whole family background was there just because we need to feel something for this guy. And I kind of feel that's a little bit lazy writing in a way. We've seen the guy that is on these missions. We've seen, well, how many people do we have to name to say, yeah, I lost my wife, lost my kids, and now I'm mad. It's like, I don't think Bruce Willis lost his wife and kids, but he's mad. Man on Fire, he's lost something that he loves. There's other movies that I can't think off the top of my head, but there's the trope of the guy that has gone off the edge, John Wick. Sorry, John Wick was the big one I was trying to think of. Lost my wife and I lost my car, and so now I'm pissed, and so that's not you know. I don't know if that's necessarily the best writing in saying that. I just wish there would be some other way to kind of make us feel sympathy for somebody, because otherwise it's like, oh, instant sympathy card. Oh, feel bad for them. So let's see if we can look for something maybe a little bit more diverse in these storylines, so we can feel better for, relate to these characters a little bit more. I will say the family flashbacks overall did not work for me. They just were kind of unnecessary to the plot. I did like the small bits of humor that were in there, talking about, obviously, like, did he just tell you to kill me? And he's like, no, that's not what he said. And he's like, I'm pretty sure that's what he just said, essentially. Kind of some dark humor when it comes to that. Would have been nice to have maybe a little bit more punch-up humor and some relatability to these characters. I felt like they were trying to maybe just have them relate just a tad bit more. Maybe a little bit more regarding the kids that had the guns. None of them, I don't recall that they might have talked to the headquarters and said, I can't engage these kids because they're kids and they have guns. It's like, maybe have just a little bit of conversation just regarding that. Just small things that they kind of brought up at the beginning and middle of the story that would have been nice to kind of just touch on here or there. Might have brought some slightly more interesting dialogue, and therefore wouldn't have been considered quote-unquote B movie. Now, I keep saying it's a B action movie. That's just because that's how I'm looking at this film and observing it and relating to it. But it might be a different experience for you. Let me know what you thought about the movie Extraction. By now, I expect you probably to have watched the movie or you listened to the podcast. Let me know what you thought about both. If you thought the review was too harsh, or if it wasn't harsh enough, or if it wasn't loud enough, you let me know if I can adjust it, fix it. Remember to comment, subscribe. If you want these podcasts early, you'll get them on YouTube by subscribing. You'll get them fresh and instant on there. We release a weekly podcast on Soundcloud as well. And so both will cover movie reviews, TV, movies, media. We have the Aftercast, where we discuss things that are non-TV movie related, but we do give some recommendations on things you might possibly like. And we could not do this podcast without your support. PayPal.me/the LuckyDog to get all the Lucky Dog goodness, Lucky Dog podcast goodness. We have all the social medias below. Email LuckyDogPodcast@gmail.com, Twitter, LuckyDogPodcast, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. Links are all in the description. Thank you for being part of the Lucky Dog community. Let me know how I can improve, maybe by speaking clearly. Let me know how I can improve on the podcast. Downvotes obviously are noticeable to me, so I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't like that. I wonder what it was about. So, feedback is obviously some of the most important stuff too. So let me know how I can improve. That's what I'm doing this for. And thank you, and take it easy.